Welcome to the Londonia podcast, episode 3. This week we have Mark, the composer and creator of the Londonia soundtrack, in the studio. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Presumably you read the book.
Well, yes.
What inspired the initial piano pieces you wrote?
Well, I often write pieces that are a kind of response to various things. Sometimes it's particular times or particular events. And I found that the book was so visual and very immediate, very visceral, that I wanted to write something to illustrate different scenes in the book. The original piano pieces, there were 5 of them. They were all about different episodes in the book. Like the first one was a sort of general setting the scene. It's called Street Scene, and it's a kind of a sort of honky-tonk type of thing, sort of thing that you might hear as part of a silent film soundtrack. So I wanted that sort of atmosphere, but also for it to be quite strange. And then the second piece, called The Park Place, that was also inspired by me sitting in Victoria Park in London very, very early in the morning and just listening to birdsong with hardly any traffic around.
And this is Victoria Park in the book, which becomes the Park Place in 2072.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I was also thinking about what it would be like to be in this park place. And there were no sounds of machines or motors or anything. And so, at 5 o'clock in the morning was probably the nearest I'd get to that. And then there's a couple of pieces which are sort of inspired by more interior spaces, like bars. So there's a piece called The Rag and Bone Rag, which is, I can imagine somebody playing a piano in a bar, playing sort of ragtime in a sort of rather nostalgic sort of setting. And then the last piece of the set was one of the most moving, one of the saddest parts of the book, which is called Parrot's Funeral, where, well, I won't give the story away, but it describes this funeral where the body of this guy is set out onto the Thames, and you can imagine the mist and the sound of foghorns, and so the piece was trying to evoke this sense, not exactly like a funeral march, but a real sort of lament.
Okay. And how did you go about planning the soundtrack, or was it mostly fairly spontaneous?
The soundtrack started when I started making recordings, environmental recordings in London. And the idea was to have a continuous sort of background soundtrack for the launch of the book in 2020, which took place in a wonderful space in East London. And so to have this playing continuously in the background. And the idea of the soundtrack was that it was a sort of mixture of little bits of music inspired by London and recordings trying to avoid the sound of machines and traffic and so on, imagining this future time where all those things have disappeared.
I think you have a large library of sound. Did you find some very old sounds from the past that you kept, which were brought into this production recently? Because I find that very interesting to think of something that you'd sort of hidden away and then come across.
Well, I've got all sorts of stuff in the archives. Some of it is music, some of it is sort of recorded environmental sounds. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, very much in the spirit of the book, it's very much about recycling. So I kind of took little bits of music or sounds from other places. So, for example, for several years, I ran a samba school in France, and we did some recordings. So there's a part in the book where I kind of slipped that into the soundtrack. And then, of course, I should mention that we had some guests, not specifically to record for the soundtrack, but people who gave me permission to to reuse certain recordings that they've done. Our friends Sid Peacock and Ruth Angel, wonderful duo couple who play violin and guitar, amongst other things. And then our son Ezra, who was learning the violin at the time, learning sort of Irish fiddle music. And one of my current projects is playing with a wonderful Italian musician called Alessio La Luce. He plays soprano sax, and I've used a few bits of the kind of improvisations and pieces that we've done together.
So a final question, which obviously the book is, its theme mainly is about the fact that there wouldn't be such a thing as the internet or anything related to it. So how do you feel about AI music, and are you pleased that the Londonia soundtrack is all human generated?
Well, I've got no interest whatsoever in AI music, because music for me is about human expression, human contact, human communication. Maybe some people find creative ways of using AI, but I see it largely as a distraction and an immense waste of resources. That's what I feel about AI music, which seems to be creeping into platforms like Spotify. So, I was only interested in using human beings in the soundtrack.
Well, I'm very glad about that. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thanks.
So now we're going to hear Chapter 1 of Londonia in its... Whatever you just said, what was that word?
Unexpurgated.
In its
Complete.
unabridged version.
Yes. Okay.
Capitula 1, Dark Quarter, 2072, St Leonard's Church, Hackrovia, Londonia. They won't, and there's only so long you can ignore hungry, howling dogs. Jack the Rabbit better be doing the rounds today, or it'll be me down the park place with a gun. D'accord on a warm day to stand waiting and watching, but these are the grey, cold, short days of another long dark quarter cycle. Dim days of persistent rain churning the detritus in the streets into grey rivers, soaked buildings and scudding clouds. Days of hurrying back to warmth, least exposure possible. My thoughts of finding wool boots and an extra thick felty to brave the elements are interrupted by a coloured ray of light sliding across the bed and onto the floor. I can't remember the last time these pink jewels graced the stone slabs. Sun, at last! The foot I slipped out to check the chill feels iced already. I curl back down, feeling the warm straw pricking under the rough sheet. Hibernation. That would be a useful thing. Bert the Swagger told me they've achieved it in the sanctuary, but he's not the most reliable source of information. The hounds start up again. Perhaps they could just hunt for rats in the front courtyard. I throw the covers back and the hovering chill hits. Christ in a fridge! How can it be this cold? And where in L'Enfer? I search desperately for my outer garments. A blanket suffices, and I scoot to the church's main door, the slabs wincing my soles, dogs bounding after me. The door creaks, and sun glances in through the narrow crack as I peer through at the scrambling scene outside. Hey, you little squits, va! Gosses again. Only 10, perhaps 11 cycles. This extra harsh weather has caused many a crop to fail, and my raised box cabbages and leeks are prized more than gold. Piss yourself, miss! One calls and jumps up onto the wall, ripping his felty. Careful, I want to say, suddenly aware of his fragile frame. I look up into pure blueness, broken only by a few fast-moving white clouds. It's so good to see that colour again. The clanging bell and scrunching cartwheels of the breadman are now audible above the general street noise. A lumpy cloth bag is slapped over the wall, a shout following. "Hoxton, you owe me!" Murder. 3 weeks' bread owed. I've scoured all the usual haunts looking for his request. A lead-lined document box, which is proving elusive. Might have to be a trip further out. Highgate or maybe Finchley. There's a mech there who has an impressive collection of teak and ebony items. Not that he's ever keen to part with them. Unlocking the gate, I peer down the street. As I'd hoped, the water mech is still making his deliveries, invaluable as the church roof collecting water pipes have burst. Another milder weather job, if the bright quarter ever arrives. The mech's donkey ambles towards the church, canisters and bottles rattling. I call out, "Salut, Tig! 2 bidons, please." He pulls the donkey to a halt and heaves off 2 glass flagons. "We still good for bacca trade?" "Sure. Can I give it to you Wednesday?" "Pas problem," he grins, looking down at my revealed undergarments. Gathering the blanket out of the mud, I grab the flagons and the bread bag, lock the gate and zip back into the church to be greeted by my horse. He stretches back his whispery lips in a grin, stamping a hoof and speaking to me in his head. I return his greeting. "Salut, Kafka. Busy day today." I drag some more hay over and check the tin bath of water. "Should be able to get some oats later when we go northwards." He answers with a snort and lifts his tail to deposit a useful load of compost onto the stone floor. If the last congregation of St. Leonard's could now see their hallowed place of worship, they might have been outraged. My home of the last cycle and the Lord's before me, almost all the pews have now gone, burnt in the harsher patches of each dark quarter. The nave, now a horse's stable, the vestry, a comfortable nest of books, bed, wood stove, and detritus of the everyday struggle. The fire is still in, just. I throw on some wood, getting it to blaze, fill the kettle and clunk it onto the stove top. A little time later, I've found my clothes and am sitting in front of the fire with a toasting fork and a bowl of tea from my diminishing supply. The sacred brew is scarce. A fellow finder recently came across a stash from before the unknown time, but it came at a heavy enough price in trade, although there is word of a vessel coming into Redbridge with possible stocks. Toast in hand, I open the agenda and check the outstanding jobs. That foitling lead box, Jack Russell for Bert, ham, denim, a new foot pedal for one of Fred's thread sewing machines, and a visit to somewhere I hadn't imagined going to. My thoughts are curtailed by the sound of a key turning in the main door. I leave the fire and go to help Jarvis as he struggles in, swearing, carrying a pile of boxes. "Fuck's sake, are these gosses, they want to break a mech. And mother, she's lost her glasses, can't see a foiling thing. Gotta take a death yet, Oxton." I smile at the sweating figure and point to the confessional. There's an empty bucket and a new sawdust pit out back. "Genial, back in 5. I'm just studying an ancient map of North Londonia when Jarvis ambles into the vestry with a happier expression on his gnarled face. He takes off his Homburg, lays it down on the table and sinks down into an ancient leather chair. "You got it goodly in here, right shouldy it is." "Toast? Tea?" I offer. "Tea," he says. "Proper tea." "The Vray. Assam, apparently." "That finder in Holloway got it, did she?" "Yes, and don't ask what I had to part with for it." "So the glasses?" "Yeah, really broke, like into pizzy bits. She can't see so much as a cat's arse without 'em, and Dad's wandering again. She found him in Commercial Road on Monday with a curtain pole. Thought he was fishing, didn't he? Murder." I add a spoonful of precious leaves to the brown Betty and look back at my friend. "Did you find them a new lodgings?" "Gaff in the same street as Sardi's place. It's a bit fumy of fish smoking, but warm enough. So, let's talk about today's agenda." Sitting down with the teapot, I pull the book towards me and check the list. Did you find out about the jack? There's a litter. Only a boy dog left, but Bert will be happy with that. I'll have to pile a bit sharpish today. Good ratters. Everyone wants them. So what's the deal? 6 bales of hay, haricot beans, box of vinyl 33s, and Marmite. Marmite? Murder. I haven't seen that for a grand cycle. You like it, don't you? Got some put by for you. I could have kissed him. In fact, I do. Oh, you're welcome, kitten, he says, a wide, cheeky grin lighting up the creased cheeks. He pours out a bowl of tea and sighs. What? I ask. Mother and her glasses. Don't know what to do. Take the box from here. There's bound to be something that'll work. Nah, tried that with a load Parrot found. Trouble is, she had some weird prescription ones from donkeys ago. Even got the bit of paper that says what it is, but that's about useful as a wax saucepan. I smile, knowing what I'm about to say will be unusual to say the least. Well, perhaps I can be of assistance with the problem. Huh? I have a rendezvous with a certain Mrs. Caruso of Upper Grosvenor Street, Sancture Central. You what? Someone called here looking for the Lord. Seemed happy that I was a dame and happy to offload the message. Gazooks! You're going to move up a rung. Find her for the Sancturians? Fuck! Could be goodly useful, H. Just don't end up like the Lord, eh? Jarvis? He grins sheepishly and pats me on the arm. Relax, I know you wouldn't. Ain't got it in you. He was always a bastard. Just expanded into a bigger one. I calm down and consider his words. Moving up a rung. The thought of what I might see and who I might meet is both alarming and enticing. Did he spend a lot of time in there, the Lord? A fair bit, yeah. Mouth to the ear stuff, you know. Some bod likes something, then someone else wants it, and so on. He pauses, lances a piece of bread onto the toasting fork and holds it to the fire. Could you ever go at getting the specs? Of course. I don't suppose you've got the prescription thing, have you? Jarvis brightens. As a matter of fact. He checks through various pockets, pulls out a battered wallet, and carefully removes a folded bit of paper. There, watch it though. Bit time-knacked it is. I glance at the faded writing, then stow the paper safely in my carpet bag's buttoned pocket. Yeah, then I'll bite down to the barb. There's a whisper out on a spont market. Might get us some exotic fruit. What about that ham for Luigi? I'll try up at the Angel Exchange, and I've got to find the Bread Mex box. Watch it round there. Clash of territory at the Mo. Never travel without a gun. That's what you say, isn't it? He nods grimly and retrieves the toast, larding it with duck fat and salt. 2 if you've got 'em, and a cyanide dust can. I grimace at the thought, but then there have been times where that could have been useful. That goss, the 2 mechs. What are you thinking about, kitten? Oh, lots of things. Could you cut my hair? I ain't done that for cycles. Suppose I've still got the knack. Why do you want to get rid of them black locks? It isn't practical, and I just felt I wanted to look a bit neater, more anonymous going in there. Cut it now? We could trade it too. Vray, got scissors? I get up and look in the jumble of knives and cutlery in a box. Here, these'll do. You sure, Roxton? Yes. He hesitates. Well, maybe it's goodly I did that drawing of you on Kafka. What drawing? Last dark quarter, don't you remember? I think for a moment, then recall a day of dark clouds and wind whipping hair across my face. Jarvis sitting opposite the church, his head bent over a rectangle of white. Yes, and I remember saying you were mad for having chosen such a time for sketching. Did you finish it? You never showed it to me. Well, I forgot it till now. I'll bring it next time, if it surfaces. Say au revoir to the main, then. I sit. Jarvis limbs up his ex-barber hands and cuts and brushes. My hair falls, snakes on the flagstones, And I wonder about the parents that gave me the gift of thick black hair and skin that stays pale brown even in the depths of a dark quarter. He steps back, cocks his head this way and that, looking at his work. That's not bad, that. He passes me the ivory hand mirror, and I smile at my revealed features. More than not bad. He grins. Not my cutting's what made you shine. Jake always says you're the most beauteous dame in Londonia. Just as well I'm gayster, eh? I look away from my reflection to my friend's cheery face and consider his words. Even in these ancient woollen layers and smelling of horses? You knows it, H. Since you was a goss, I wouldn't wonder. He crams a last half slice of toast into his mouth and jerks a thumb streetwards. Hello, better get moving. Then he stops, an unusually concerned look on his face. You sure about this jaunt into there? The tone of his voice pulls me up. Am I sure? No, probably not at all. It'll be fine, and hopefully I can sort out your mum's problem. He smiles. Just be careful, eh? I lean over and kiss his stubbly face. Of course. Perhaps this is mad, to risk a trip into the unknown world behind the walls, but something more than just trades to be had excites me. Draining the tea bowl, I reluctantly leave the cocooning armchair and pull on my felty that's been warming near the fire. My neck feels cold after the hair cropping, so I select a scarf from the many hung on a hook near the door. A flash of off-white amongst the wool catches my eye. I peer at the word printed on a tattered label. Next. Next what? I shrug and turn to look at Jarvis as he hauls on his vast coat over blue, shiny padded trousers and sweatshirt that has the words "Keep calm, drink beer" across the front. What are those trousers? I ask. Got 'em in the Spitalfields free-for-all. Skiing kit, the gar said. Skiing? You know, snow, hills, little pointy wood houses. Don't suppose anyone does it now, apart from the buggers who might live up there chasing elk and stuff. How do I not know about skiing? He notices my expression. Check your precious books. Bound to be one that has info on it. Yes, maybe. He retrieves his hat and jams it on. Talking of books, Jake was wondering if you'd teach him some stuff. Stuff? A bit of writing improvement. He wants to do more than clunk the machinery at the press. Well, we owe him for that stash of scissors he gave us, so fair trade. And anyway, I like teaching. Jarvis hoists his canvas bag over his shoulder and heads towards the door. Be back at darking. Want to hear about that sanctuary? Bring Parrot and something to eat. I'll probably need a drink by then. I've got a bottle of red Saint-Emilion, 2018, that I traded for those sacks of windfalls. He smiles and strides up the aisle, his voice echoing in the musty space. See you, kitten. Don't forget your shooter. I stand for a moment thinking about my visit to come. Perhaps I should go to the bathhouse first. A week ago was the last time. I might smell offensive. It's difficult to tell. Tom didn't complain, but then everyone seems to smell the same. Damp, woolly, bitter somehow. There's a bathhouse in Angel, so maybe, if I've got the time. I get the horse tackled up, lead him outside and do quick check around. The great hounds are sharing the last of a rabbit. I glance again at the leeks, considering their worth. I'll pull some later. A box to the cafe equals coffee and hopefully bacon for several sittings. I once saw a picture of Great Eastern Street where I ride now, from the time called the 2020s. It was a very different place, congested with the vehicles that now lie rusting. My thoughts cease as I hear a shout. My friend Sardi runs towards me, her bright robes flapping. "Yay, Hoxton! I was legging to see you." I slow Kafka and look down into the radiant dark face. "Salut, Sardi. Sorry, I've got to get to the exchange now." She nods. "Pas problème. See you for Saint's Day, remember?" We clasp hands for a moment, then I nudge the horse to walk on. "I'll be there." I glance back at her, thinking of how we met, the day when she came to request a finding. With the sway of Kafka's walk, my mind drifts back. The bell on the church wall was jangling on its string. Putting down the lime-wash brush, I'd wiped my hands, gone to the door and opened the viewing hatch. Jarvis's mirror on a pole revealed the visitor to be a dame dressed in flowing garments, her hair tied into a batik turban. We made the deal. I was to find a blue and white china tureen in exchange for 2 live chickens. 2 days later, I'd found the tureen in a shouting house, huge, with a blue pattern of trees and bridges, and made of white china that rang like a bell when you tapped it. Something breaks me from the daydream. I swing around to see a mech sloping up to Kafka's flank. A hand springs out, yanks my coat back, grabs for the gun in its holster. Merde! I've clasped his hand, pushing it away, but he's strong, fingers twisting mine. I free a foot, kick out at his head. He ducks, hand releasing. I slip the gun out just as Kafka rears and plunges. I seize the reins harder. One hand's not enough. The gun tumbles. The mech misses it, grabs a fistful of my coat instead. He's pulling at me, dragging. The saddle slips. "Get the fuck down! I only want the horse, I won't hurt ya." Something in his glassy eyes tells me otherwise. I should have bought Fagin. I kick out again, risking a yelp. "Fagin!" I said, "Get down, Pooh!" He lunges, hauling me further out of the saddle, one hand grasping my arm, the other scrabbling in the dirt. He snatches up the gun, snaps upright, and shoves the rusty barrel into my temple. I squeeze my gaze back to the church as the metal digs in. His voice grates close to me. "Last chance, crud wench." The gate is high, but Fagin's not far off Kafka's height on hind legs. Perhaps he can clear it. I risk a bluff. Dak, take the horse. Just get the fuck off me." The mech grins, lowers the gun a little. "That's more like it, LA." I hear the rattle of chains, barking, a howl. Fagin jumps. He's free, loping towards us, a giant, grey nightmare of a dog. The mech hears the hound. He turns. The gathered crowd is shouting now, urging the dog on. "Kill the fucker! Chula bastard!" He swings the gun clumsily towards the beast, trips, fires, bullet lodged in grass. He runs. Too late. Fagin sees me scrambling to get upright in the saddle. He sums it all up in his dog brain and leaps. I turn away, hearing bones break. A scream starts. Then it's quiet. As I walk Kafka on, the great hound joins us, licking his lips and looking up into my face. He tells me he loves me, and I'm glad he's on my side. Allez, home, Fagin, I continue, reaching down to stroke his velvet head. As Kafka turns the street corner, I glance back once more. The scene is already busy with scavengers and a death cart. Clothes and belongings of an unknown man now scattered. In the sky, a cluster of muta pigeons circle, waiting for the carcass. I concentrate on the day ahead, stash the gun, now reawake of its presence. No more daydreaming. Jarvis always says, imagine you have 6 pairs of eyes, snail's eyes on stalks, when you walk the streets. We're leaving Hakrovia now and entering Islingtown, where a gang war between Poles and Bretons has been raging for over a long cycle. I hesitate and slow Kafka, thinking of a friend who lives in Wharf Road at the edge of the most troubled area. A nearby exchange of gunfire, added to my own recent escape from harm, decides me, and I urge the horse into a gallop up Angel Hill. The terracotta dome of the exchange building comes into view, and Kafka speeds ahead, knowing there will be oaks and water. Pulling Kafka to a stop, I get down and look for one of the regular horse boys. "Hey, Henri!" He leaves the cluster of gosses standing by the horse rails and lopes over with a grin. "Salut, Oxton, ça va?" "It's going fine, thanks." I rummage in the large carpet bag. "Tobacco? Chocolate?" He shrugs. "Bah, Zeitporn?" "Merde, how old are you?" Actually, he's probably over 16, but this generation of gosses are small. 50 Shades of Grey, I suggest, holding out a thumbed book. It's soft, but antique and rare, from the 2010s. "Have you it in French?" "Come on, it'll be good practice." "Dak," he concedes, then looks at an ancient watch on a chain. "A cycle, Dak?" He doesn't know what time it is, but the hands still move, a calculation of how long I've got. He takes the horse's reins, ties him to the bar and fetches the food. I stand for a moment, looking out across Londonia. Southwards, the lakes glimmer like dropped coins. The Thames snakes its way into Londonia, part estuary, part river. Black dots of stilt houses line the edge, but the swagger lives down there with the shifting sands and mud, unearthing the past as it comes to light. Aware that my clock face is being used up in musing, I turn and walk into the madness of the exchange. The windows rattle with shouting and swearing. People stand on chairs, tables, even each other, holding their wares aloft, their desires scrawled on paper. Live chickens for wine, ink for meat, teeth fixed for sex. There's no sign of the hams. I tour the room. At the back, a frightening-looking man dressed in ancient leather trousers has a lead-lined box. I pass casually, not showing the excitement within me. It's perfect. The bread mech would be off my back. I walk back, tone nonchalant. "Locks, does it?" "Impenetrable," he draws. "See for yourself." I bend down and turn the silver key. The wood is beautiful, something exotic, polished by time. I'm estimating how heavy it is when he leans forward and clamps a grimy hand onto my thigh. "I've only got one currency. Don't need anything else, see?" His grip tells me what he means. The thought is unappealing, but 5 passes of the clock's hand and I could pay a debt. "How long and what?" "You've a pretty mouth. Don't suppose I'd trouble you for too long." A smile stretches, revealing jagged teeth, decayed as bombed buildings. I can smell the rank odour emanating from the leather trousers, where a distinct bulge is now rising. Sex exchange can solve a lot of problems, but sometimes... "Sorry, Breadmech, you'll have to wait," I mutter, and disappear back into the swirling crowd as the gar curses me. Someone's got shoes. A huge crowd is gathering as he shouts into the dusty atmosphere. "Italy for the final curtain, all unworn, best quality." People surge forward, waving vegetables, tools, even a dog held aloft. "Dak, Dak, one at a foiling time." The shoes are good, stupid though, heels and bright colours, but there are good trades to be done with such things. I push forward, holding a trump card. "Snash, best for 6 pairs. The red, 2 yellow, white, green and the black with buckles." He stabs a finger into the cloth bag, takes a swab and wipes it onto his gums. "Where'd you get this?" I shake my head. 3 pairs, he offers. 4. Can you get more stuff? Maybe. Tell me. I'll send a pigeon when I have more. Give me your name and a message station. So, the shoes. He nods and bundles them up into a sack bag as he slaps ferreting hands away from his stock. We exchange. He hands me a faded card, and I walk out of the crush, breathing in the wind that scurries up the hill. I examine the moth-soft rectangle. Suggs, Holborn. That's easy. Not too far. A reliable pigeon route from the Brick Lane station. Kafka sees me and stamps a foot, impatient to be moving. I walk over and tie the sack bag onto the saddle. Have you found your bonheur? Henry asks, untying the reins. I don't know about happiness, but yes, it was useful. How's the book? He raises his shoulders in a Gallic shrug and pouts. Oh, ça va. Too soft, tu sais. I smile as I put a foot into the stirrup and climb up. A bientôt, Henry. Leaving the crowds, we head down Pentonville Road and join the river of humans and animals. Packs of dogs roam alongside horses, camels, and scores of people, some wandering lost in drugs' dreams, some striding on private missions. I pass a dame astride a camel strung with flasks and boxes. She shouts out her trade. Tea, blackberry ale, crepes, patties. I slow the horse to walk beside her. It's a long time since toast. Salut, ça va? Oui, ça va. What do you want? Tea and a crepe. How much? 2 silvers. Dak. Jam or honey? You've got honey? See, my brother, he got bees. Would he trade? Sure. She hands me a stubby card. He's in Actonia. He got 20 hives now. I opt for the honey. She wraps the pancake in brown paper and hands it to me while holding up an ancient thermos on a string. Pulling out the cork, she pours dark liquid into a terracotta cup and passes it to me, then grabs a stick to beat off someone lurking at the camel's rear. I take the rough vessel and drink. It's not bad. One more swig, and I place the cup into the basket of empties strapped to the camel's rump. She turns, grins, thumbs up. See you for trade in Actonia! Nudging Kafka back into a trot, we head towards the sanctuary, the sun obscured by its towering walls. Built of shining coppery metal, no one can scale them. If they tried, they would be shot by one of the luckless people whose mindless job it is to watch from above. The cubicles built into the tops of the walls are small, just big enough for a man to stand for too much time, looking out over the mayhem below. The buzz of the exchange had temporarily smudged out my thoughts of the sanctuary. Now, actually here, staring at these glistening walls, I'm starkly aware of what I'm about to do. How had I been so calm about this visit? I'm going to enter this place, know what is on the other side. My stomach grinds in apprehension, hands slippy with sweat on the reins. I wonder about turning back, but my curiosity is stronger than my fear. The walls close up are smooth. I put out a hand to touch the metal, but recoil. Perhaps there could be something harmful, some unannounced defence system. As we approach the eastern access point, a rumbling armoured truck appears from the other direction, its wheels leaving a trace of white powder on the rubbled road surface. The towering metal gates of the access point swing slowly open, and uniformed men appear, pushing back the crowd, one shouting through a loud hailer.
Move back now. Anyone with the correct papers and reason to be here will be seen.
A stubborn mech waving a banner advances. A gust of wind flattens the cloth, and I catch its painted words. Free Londonians from the tunnels. The mech with the loud hailer produces a baton and pushes him backwards.
You've had fair warning, now move.
The Londonian starts to chant, whapping the Centurion with his flag. Free them! Free them! Others join in. I move Kafka back a few paces, anticipating the trouble ahead, and it happens fast. The scoop truck reverses. Someone aboard the vehicle unhitches the ridged metal tube at the back of the vehicle and sprays the now boisterous crowd. People collapse, are scooped by the crew and dumped into a side opening of the truck. It moves forwards through the gateway. Just the powder and the banner left. A voice seems to come from nowhere. "Your name?" I almost jump from the saddle and glance down to see another uniformed mech. "Hoxton." "Your first name?" "It's my only name." "Reason for traversing?" "A finder request." "From?" "Madame Caruso." He consults a small metal tablet, presses a few buttons and waves me on. "Walk the horse through." Whatever the mech who had come to see the Lord had reported back seems to have been in order. I stroke Kafka's mane, assure him everything will be fine, and dig my boots lightly into his belly. He steps reluctantly, and we pass into a starkly lit tunnel, at the end of which I can make out an impressive yellow-stoned building with 2 sweeping arches, and beyond that a vast red-bricked edifice. As Kafka reaches the end of the tunnel, a mech steps forwards and tells me to dismount, enter the yellow building, and to leave the horse. As he is holding a large gun, I cooperate. The first room I enter is plain, just a metal desk, a cabinet and 2 chairs. I am told to wait, so do so, nervously wondering what will happen to Kafka. A short time later, a dame appears, dressed in the same grey uniform as the mechs. "Sit, please." She turns to the cabinet, opening its doors to reveal hundreds of green files. Eventually she selects one, leafs through the pages inside slowly, then looks at me. "How does Madame Caruso know you?" "She doesn't. The request was through a worker of hers." "His name?" "Benjamin Otwald." She shuffles more paper and stares at various sheets for a long time. I want to leap up, smack the file from her hand and shout in her face at the slug's pace of this interview. "Allez, allez, stuff to do, busy, busy." Eventually she flops the file shut. "His journey to Londonia was recorded and the result after visiting. A traversement will be granted." She passes me several pieces of paper and gestures to a door. "Sign these, go through to the wash chamber, strip, and you will be dealt with." "What about my horse?" "It will be checked and ready for you on your return." She takes the papers back, stamps them all, returns the file and leaves the room. As I stare at the door, wondering if I should and could escape back to familiarity, the other door opens and another dame leans around the door. "Madam Hoxton, this way." This room is narrow. The walls hum. I have a million questions to ask, but the blank, pale face in front of me is not going to supply any answers. "Have you recently contracted any of the following maladies?" She reels off a list while siphoning blood from my wrist with a syringe. "Ow! No, I haven't." Did I catch a faint smile? If I did, it vanishes. "Take your clothes off, place them in this tray and stand in the chamber. At the end of the procedure, we will have the results, and if satisfactory, you will dress in a provided all-in-one and coat for the duration of your visit. Leave your own bag and transfer your essentials to the provided bag or use the zipped pocket of the all-in-one." An image appears in my mind from a book I'd once opened. Before the Third World War, there had been another. Herds of people pushed into chambers to die, poisoned by gas. There are things in the ceiling here and smells I don't recall. What to do? Mr. Otwald never mentioned a wash chamber. Well, I forgot the bathhouse, so... Removing the layers, I step into the chamber, under the first metal disc in the ceiling, shivering with cold and apprehension. After a buzzing sound, a spray of gelatinous liquid coats my body. A robotic voice echoes in the room. "Rub the cleanser into your hair and skin, then move to the next procedure point." I comply and am rewarded with a gush of warm water sluicing off the fluid. As the water becomes cloudy with soap, I revel in the simple act of washing in a luxurious flow of clean water. I am rinsed. The buzzing sound starts again, and a jet of warm air chases the beads of water from my skin. A dame stands a few paces away. She's just had the same treatment and is stepping into one of the issued garments. She stares at me as she ties a scarf around her long blonde hair. "What are you here for?" Her accent is unfamiliar. "Find a job for Mrs. Caruso. You?" "I am mirror dame. Some people like it here, to know their future, even though governors don't approve." "Governors?" "Those who run this place." "Where do they govern from?" She looks cagey suddenly. Her voice drops. "People listen, you know." As I reach to take my allotted garment from its hanger, she continues, her voice a different tone now. "How old is your infant?" I step back and stare at her. "I don't have a goss." "You do, or you did, in Sancture, and that's the truth." The missing cycles of my life sting my heart. What does she know about me and how? "But—" "Did you never wonder about that scar crossed you there?" She points to the faint line running low down across my stomach. "I can see, even without that, mind." She points to the door, where voices can be heard. "Time to go." "Wait, where can I find you?" "Drinking house, Silk Street, Barbican. I have room there." Her frost blue eyes penetrate me once more, and then she's gone. I stop clutching the grey fabric to me and get into the suit, cold now, freezing, not from the atmosphere of the place, more the overwhelming information. I want to turn, step back outside and bury my face in Kafka's mane, go home. Too late. The door is sliding open, and I step into a place that belongs in dreams, the mirror dame's words like billboard lettering standing in my mind. As I stand, eyes wide staring, I wish Jarvis was next to me, paper and pencil in hand, sketching furiously. I'm no artist and carry nothing to blemish a page with, but I feel my mind filling up, recording a stock of images as I look and look at each thing, so different from everything I know. Yet somehow, like an itch, unreachable under layers of clothes, something nags at me, a notion of déjà vu. "You looking for a shore, madame?" I twist around at this bizarre statement regarding sand, an ocean. "Sorry?" A young mech dressed in a bottle green uniform smiles back at me. "Rickshaw taxi." "Oh, I see, sure. Yes, I suppose so." He points towards a line of brightly painted carriages headed by bicycles. "Or if you wish, I could call and see if a car could be available, although it may be doubtful, as this is a power-saved day. Are you going far?" I take the piece of paper from the all-in-one zip pocket and consult the sloping script. "Number 34, Upper Grosvenor Street." He places a small brass whistle between his lips and peeps. "Upper Grosvenor Street!" Another youth appears from a doorway, attired in a pink suit. He steps over to his matching shawl and glances over to me, perhaps taking note of my grey outfit. What do the workers here think of Londonians? He opens the door, and I step up to sit within a soft, padded interior. The carriage sways off, and I stare out at the passing roads. A flash of vivid red fills the window as a vehicle passes in the other direction. A London bus. Not one of the rusted hulks that adorn our streets, but a gleaming red bus. The bus of a postcard that I have pinned to the wall of the vestry. "Hello, Doris. Well, here I am in this great city with its black taxis and red phone boxes and post boxes and buses. I do wish you were here. Love, Babs. Summer 1965. The vehicle continues down a wide road, a flat road without holes or weeds. No fires litter the pavements, no huddles of people dealing, fighting, or staring blankly at their belongings. The few people that walk the pavements walk calmly, as if they are assured of their safety and have pleasant things occupying their minds, not fear of possible attack, death or robbery. I recall a fancy dress party held by the Society of Finders in an old wrecked hotel. Planned for weeks, everyone had rifled through their stocks to find a suitable outfit, the result being a patchwork of history: Victorians, flappers, teddy boys, pearly queens, and a multitude of other faded reflections of the past. The clothes worn in this street I look out on now appear to be copies of dress styles from around the 1900s. The women wear long dresses with nipped-in waists and full swinging skirts. And the hats! Fabricated I can't imagine how. Huge, statuesque, covered in lace, ribbons, bows, flowers and birds. The men's fashions similarly echo that era. Beautiful tailored waistcoated suits and shining shoes. My gaze moves away from the people walking the pavements to the buildings, preserved and perfect each one, as if constructed yesterday. Yet it's possible to see the link between Londonia and here, our city as it once was, now decaying and changed through people doing what they can. These buildings are cleaned and repaired, the doors and window frame colours as bright as the sanctuarians' clothes. There are shops for the sake of shopping, clothes for the sake of being looked at. The carriage speeds on past windows stacked with shoes, fabrics and furniture, past people emerging from the doorways laden with bags bearing the shop's names. My mind feels hazy with 1,000 images, the whir of the Shaw's wheels on the smooth roads hypnotic. I jump as the driver suddenly speaks. "Just coming up to number 34, madam. If the lady of the house cares to call the Martindale rickshaws when you are ready, I will return." I suddenly realise that I have no form of remuneration. "How will I pay you?" "The Carusos have an account with us." He nods at me, steps on a pedal, and the wheels of the Shaw are then zizzing on the smooth road surface as he pulls away, leaving me alone on this sanctuary pavement. Londonia's rumble seems 1,000,000 miles away. It is as if I've breathed in some intoxication, making all sound and colour intensified. As I stare at the blancmange pink of the house opposite, the door opens and a dame steps out, resplendent, in a daffodil-coloured dress and feather-covered hat. She peers up at the sky, then calls back into the hallway. A dark-skinned girl wearing an apron bobs a curtsy as she hands over an umbrella. Without a word, the dame takes it, walks down the steps and onto the pavement, skirt swaying. For a moment the door stays open and I feel the maid's eyes resting on me from the corridor. The door clacks shut, a small sound in the almost silent street. As I turn to walk towards the Caruso's house, a mech appears from a side street pushing a green and gold painted cart. His matching overalls bear the same crest, a circle encompassing a letter C. He stops, lifts out a brush and sweeps methodically at the dirt-free road, ceasing only to raise his cap to a couple of women who pass by in their long frock coats. As he levels with me, the cap isn't lifted. I am not part of this society, obviously just someone here to perform a task. I walk across checkerboard tiles to a door, the colour and shininess of the bus we passed earlier. My finger hovers close to the bell on its brass plate. Who is Mrs. Caruso? What will she want? Then I recall the mirror dame's words and add them into the angsty mix in my mind. My finger meets the bell. The door opens and a grave-faced man peers out, his neat black suit, greased back hair and quiet air, elements of someone employed to wait on others. "Yes?" "I'm here to see Mrs. Caruso, Hoxton from Londonia." "Please come in, you are expected." I follow him into a canary yellow hallway lined with paintings. The overpowering sweet smell of lilies almost drags a memory from me. Silky white petals, and fuzzy pollen stamens, a smear of mustard colour on a white dress. "Madam Hoxton?" He is staring at me, white-gloved hand clasping the handle of a partially opened door. I stop dithering and sally forth, memory fragment gone, Goss dilemma pushed to one side. Whatever she wants, I'll get it, find it, make it happen. Mrs. Caruso, a weighty dame of perhaps my age, sits examining a book within a room that seems out of place within this elegant building. I suppose I'd been expecting subtle striped wallpaper, walnut wood furniture, not angular shapes and gaudy textiles. She stands up, placing the tome on a metal and glass side table. "Miss Hoxton, so ticked up you could visit." I'm still confused by the sight of her in floor-length embroidered dress within this room of steel and hard-looking furnishings, and the fact that her face appears to be almost the grey side of pink. "Mrs. Caruso, happy to be here. Thank you for entrusting me with your request after the sad demise of the finder you had expected to be here today." Noticing my interest in her surroundings and attire, she giggles and then whispers as if we are conspirators. "I'm going to make the change." "The change?" "Sit and I'll throw light." She gestures to one of the uncomfortable-looking armchairs. "Cocktail?" "Oh, just a tea if possible." She tugs at a cord near the fireplace and the door opens almost immediately. "Madam?" "Tea gubbins and a tequila sunset." "Very good, madam." She settles back in another chair and picks up a magazine from a pile on a side table. "As I was saying, the change. Don't know about interior and clothes fashions in Londonia, but here we've had the early 1900s for far too long, possibly even 6 months." An image of Jarvis dressed in a tuxedo, pink flares and golfing jumper enters my head. We don't really have fashion as such." Her sculpted eyebrows reach new heights. "What do you do all the time?" If I had an answer, she doesn't wait to hear it. "I guessed. Even for Update Journal suggested it. The 2020s. See, I'm way ahead." "Did the Lord find this other furniture?" I ask, beginning to feel slightly worried. Mrs. Caruso points around the room. "The suite, that side table, but what I really need is—" She reaches for the catalogue I now see it to be and picks through its fragile pages. Reaching a marked page, she sighs. "This!" and hands me the thing as if it is a holy manuscript. The page shows a glass-doored cabinet. Designed by Olga Benson, Splot is the perfect place to store your family treasures, pine and particle board. Depicted in the photograph is a smiling family sitting on a sofa like the one in this room. I risk a look at the cover. IKEA 2025. "Could you find it?" she says, a slight tone of desperation in her voice. "Yes," I say confidently, knowing it will be virtually impossible. The beverages arrive, mine housed not in a silver pot as I had thought, but in a blue china vessel with gold zigzags. "Habitat 2023, she smiles. "Finesse." Totally. "We must land on your spoolies for this." As Jake had pointed out, I do find language fascinating, but my brain is beginning to ache. "Your fee," she assists. I rejoin reality and seize this opportunity. "You must understand this is a very difficult find." She nods, and I continue while searching for Jarvis's scrap of paper in my zipper pocket. "This is the first thing I need. My finder partner's mother desperately needs glasses, and this is a prescription." She looks surprised as she takes the paper from me. "Don't you have Opties out there?" A picture appears in my mind of Bert the Swagger showing me his latest pair of specs, a weird coagulation of wire and tortoise-shell frames held together with gluey string. No, not as such. Oh, she shrugs carelessly. Shouldn't be a problem. I'm sure Caruso can get them fabried quick enough. D'accord. If spectacles are easy to obtain, I will ask for 30 pairs of reading glasses of different strengths and a large quantity of basic medical items, bandage, antiseptic cream. She cuts me short with a wave and speaks to the servant who has just appeared to offer more tea. Gubbins, fetch one of the medical kits, please. I glance around the room as we wait, wondering which of the 100 questions queuing I should ask. How long have you lived here, Mrs. Caruso? About 15 years, I think. We moved from Portland Place after the wedding. That was such an event. Centenary Park, white peacocks, 300 guests. The door opens and Gubbins hands over an oblong box with a slight bow. Anything else, madam? My employer drains the last of her cocktail and puts the glass down. No, I assume everything is prepped for dinner this evening? Yes, madam. You asked me to remind you of the bulletin at 16 hours. It is nearly time. Thank you, Gubbins. As he retires, she shows me the box's contents. These were taken in exchange before. If that's zenny for you, how many should I ask Caruso to get? I wonder how far I can make this trade stretch and what she might be expecting. The glasses and 20 kits. As I said, it will be a challenging find. She looks slightly doubtful, but recovers her buoyancy quick enough. And it's a deft search you'll find what I want? What happens if I can't? It won't be a problem. There might be a further finding. Clothes. As I've said, we're just lousy of the early 20th century rags. Oh, I need to eye the news. Your predecessor managed to find a television from 2020. Everyone's crazed for it. The only catastrophe is the missing turn-on thing. Perhaps you could snag one while you're out looking around? She gets up and walks over to a silver oblong on the wall I hadn't previously noticed. A button pressed, the screen jitters into life, revealing an overexcited dame reeling off a list. I have to ask, how is that powered? She looks blank, shrugs. Oh, I don't know. Shh. 1 for running and dance simulation. Channel 2, historical, the construction of the sanctuary walls. Channel 3, further sexual instruction and your husband's well-being. Channel 4, lawn maintenance. Channel 5, caring for antiques. Retro film channel. Tonight, Star Wars 15, The Void. Home channel, what's new in antiques? The race for IKEA. Public cleansing channel, executions, live from the rectangle. The weather, cloud cover, rain expected before 8. Have a good evening. The screen blanks. Mrs. Caruso's greyish face is flushed as she turns to me. I prepare to discuss the proposed executions, feeling terrified. IKEA, she says, smiling. See, I knew it.